Welcome fellow travelers, Graham here. Today we're going to take a tour of Vancouver's famous Stanley Park Seawall. Let's go and explore. Starting the morning off in Cole Harbour, which is the first section of the longest continuous seawall in the world. Cole Harbour is the section of Burrard Inlet that sits between Vancouver's downtown peninsula and the Brockton Peninsula of Stanley Park. Walking along the waterfront, you'll find several rowing and boating clubs, private marinas, as well as high-end shops and restaurants. And within the marinas, you'll spot 6 floating homes, which are some of the only floating homes allowed by the City of Vancouver. And if you do choose to spend your morning with a stroll along Cole Harbour, just remember it adds a little bit extra to your walk. I'm just now getting to the gates of Stanley Park, and I've already racked up over 5,000 steps. Stanley Park is Vancouver's #1 outdoor attraction. It's actually larger than Central Park in New York and has been voted the #1 urban park in the world. All right, here's our route for today. We're down here by Lost Lagoon starting at kilometer 0, and we're going to make our way around the perimeter of the park all the way down past Second Beach at the 9-kilometer mark. One of our first stops is the Vancouver Rowing Club behind me. This is the longest continuous sports organization in Vancouver and has been in this location since 1911. The Vancouver Rowing Club Heritage Building was officially opened in September 1911 and has been the site of many colorful historic regattas. The club has an impressive international record and has placed athletes on Canada's Olympic, Pan American, and Commonwealth Games teams, including the team that won rowing gold for Canada in the 1956 Melbourne Olympics. The club currently has a fleet of 4 8-person boats, 10 4-person boats, 11 2-person boats, and 5 singles. Up next, we can see DEADMANS Island. DEADMANS Island is sacred to local First Nations and was used as a tree burial grounds by the Squamish peoples. The island continued to be used as a cemetery when early settlers arrived in the 1880s, and between 1888 and 1892, the island became a quarantine site for victims of the smallpox epidemic, as well as a burial ground for those who didn't survive. Despite this history, in 1944, the Canadian Navy decided to make it the site of Vancouver's Naval Reserve Division. The HMCS Discovery became a stone frigate that was strategically located on the island in the security of Vancouver's harbour. Throughout Stanley Park, you'll see signs of Vancouver's logging heritage. Before it was designated a reserve, the island was logged by 6 different companies between the 1860s and 1880s. The totem poles at Brockton Point are British Columbia's most visited tourist attraction. The collection started in the 1920s when the Vancouver Parks Board brought in 4 totems from Vancouver Island's Alert Bay. They purchased additional totems from Haida Gwaii and the BC Central Coast to celebrate the 1936 Golden Jubilee. In the mid-1960s, the totem poles were moved and assembled as an attraction at Brockton Point. Fortunately, the Skeetons mortuary pole was returned to Haida Gwaii, and the one that stands here now is a replacement. The other original poles have also been relocated to museums for preservation, but the Parks Board has since commissioned replacement poles so that the attraction can remain. In 2008, 3 beautifully carved red cedar portals were added to welcome visitors to the Brockton Point Visitor Centre and the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. These gateways represent the traditional slant roof style of the Coast Salish architecture and show the history and thriving modern culture of the Coast Salish. Up next is Hallelujah Point, a grassy area on the southeast side of Stanley Park, which offers magnificent views of downtown Vancouver. It got its name because the Salvation Army used to hold Sunday services here and the shouts of "Hallelujah" could be heard across the water into the city of Vancouver. In 1948, it was officially named Hallelujah Point in honor of the Salvation Army's 60 years of service in British Columbia, and in 1962, a plaque was unveiled to commemorate the Salvation Army's Canadian Centennial. Right up above is a statue of famed Vancouver runner Harry Jerome. This 9-foot-tall statue was unveiled in 1986 to commemorate Jerome's running career. Harry Jerome was born in Saskatchewan but moved to North Vancouver at the age of 12. He was a Canadian track and field sprinter and PE teacher. He won a bronze medal at the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo and set a total of 7 world records over the course of his career. And just up ahead we can see Vancouver's famous 9 o'clock gun. The gun casing was cast in England in 1816 and brought here in 1894. It was originally used by mariners to set their chronometers and to warn fishermen when fishing had closed for the day. Before today's age of electronics, the general population needed a way to keep their clocks aligned. This was originally managed by the Brockton lighthouse keeper who would light a stick of dynamite over the water. This practice was phased out and replaced with the firing of the cannon every day at 9 p.m. Even today, Vancouver residents can hear that 9 p.m. gun ringing out over the city. Another daily Vancouver tradition is the sounding of the 12 o'clock horns. Every day at noon, Vancouverites know that it's time for lunch when the first 3 chords of O Canada echo throughout the city. At the east end of Stanley Park is the Brockton Point Lighthouse. The original Brockton Point Lighthouse was constructed in 1890 but was replaced by the current lighthouse in 1914. The current version is an automated lighthouse used to guide ship traffic in and out of Burrard Inlet. But prior to that, Brockton Point had a lighthouse keeper who served for over 25 years and is credited for having saved 16 people from drowning. Sitting just above the water is a sculpture by Alec Imrity called Girl in a Wetsuit. This bronze statue, commissioned by a Vancouver lawyer, is a not-so-subtle replication of the Little Mermaid sculpture which famously sits in Copenhagen, Denmark. This is a replica of the ship's figurehead from the SS Empress. That ship sailed between North America and Asia between 1891 and 1922. It was sometimes called the Queen of the Pacific and crossed the Pacific Ocean over 400 times. Once the boat was decommissioned, the figurehead was going to be thrown away, but it was saved by the province newspaper who had it restored and placed in Stanley Park in 1927. Since then, the original continued to deteriorate, so this monument has been updated with a fiberglass replica, but the original figurehead can still be seen in the Vancouver Maritime Museum. The history of Stanley Park's Lumberman's Arch originates back in 1912 when a much larger arch was constructed for a visit from the Duke and Duchess of Connaught. The original structure was nicknamed the Bowie Arch and was located at Pender Street and Hamilton Street in downtown Vancouver. It was then moved to Stanley Park and continued to call that home, where it sat deteriorating for the next 30 years. In 1952, it was in jeopardy of being scrapped completely, but instead was replaced by the simpler version that we know today. Prospect Point is the peak of elevation in Stanley Park. But hundreds of feet below that sits the Prospect Point Lighthouse. The lighthouse sits at the site of many nautical mishaps caused by rocks and strong tidal currents. And this is where the SS Beaver famously ran aground in 1888. That tragedy resulted in the lighthouse being installed at this point just 3 months later. Another one of Stanley Park's most famous icons is SIWASH Rock. This is a 32-million-year-old sea stack located just off the seawall between 3rd Beach and Lionsgate Bridge. According to the legends of Squamish First Nations, a man was transformed into SIWASH Rock as an indestructible monument to clean fatherhood, a reward for his unselfishness. And as we round out our walk, we're passing by 3rd Beach, which is located at Ferguson Point in Stanley Park. This naturally sandy beach is surrounded by trees and rock outcroppings, which helps separate and shield beachgoers from the noise of the city. Moving along further is 2nd Beach, which is home to an oceanside heated outdoor pool. For children and families, this is a great place to enjoy some summer fun. I figured all that walking deserved a little refreshment, so I stopped off at Stanley Park Brewing for a cold craft beer. And we're finishing up our lap of Stanley Park with a stroll along the edge of Lost Lagoon. Of course, local residents will know Lost Lagoon as a popular meeting point, but they might not know how it got its name. Lost Lagoon was a tidal body of water connected to Cole Harbour. The lagoon would become lost when the tide changed and the water drained, becoming a somewhat unsightly mudflat. To solve this problem, the lagoon was permanently sealed and the salt water was replaced with fresh water pumped from the city's water system. Thanks for watching. Remember to keep exploring, and until next time, it's time to exit through the gift shop.